Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how I got signed to Next Management in just 1 week and some tips for you to also become a signed model. Now, so I had to do some prep in order to make this happen. I have a mother agency and I have my notes here just so I can keep myself aligned. So a mother agency is it's essentially a model's first agency, and they help develop that model in their portfolio and they manage the model's career. So I have a mother agency in New York called Yanni Models. So I've been with her since 2020 and I wasn't really taking modeling that serious. So I was building my portfolio and I really was just taking my time with doing that. I didn't really have a timeline by when I wanted to have it done. I was just kind of going with the flow. And for a year, I stopped modeling and I became a social media manager. So I decided at the end of last year that I wanted to get back into modeling. So we finished up my portfolio. And that was the first part, building my portfolio and the development. So that for me looked like adding some more images to make myself look like a pretty well-rounded model. I included beauty shots. I have maybe 1 or 2 editorial shots in there. I have something that shows off my body, just a variety of shots. And I have a couple of images that have different hairstyles, but not too much. So my natural short haircut is my look. And I don't really go beyond that when it comes to my portfolio and the images that I have in there. I have maybe 1 image of my afro and maybe 1 with like a puff, and that's it, just to give them a little variety, like the clients and the agency some variety, but that's pretty much what I stick to. So that was the first part, the prep. Now the second part is doing the test shoots to build my portfolio. Now, a test shoot is really, it's where people collaborate so that they can both get images for their portfolios. So when you're doing test shoots, it could really be between a photographer and the model. It could be between a model and a photographer and a makeup artist or a stylist or a hairstylist. Everyone wants to get images for their portfolios, not just us as the models. So I did test shoots, which was how I was able to get the images that I needed for my portfolio. Now, I will say there is such thing as an investment test. Usually tests are free, but sometimes they are not. And when you're with an agency, sometimes they have photographers that they use, and these photographers charge anywhere from $500 to all the way up to like $3,000, right? Depending on what their packages are and how many images you get and what's included with that: styling, makeup, hair, etc., right? So I think I did maybe 1 or 2 investment tests, and it wasn't a crazy amount. It might have been something like, for one of them, I had to pay for the film because he used film camera for some of them, and it was like $50, right? So that wasn't a huge investment. And then for another one, it might have been $300, right? But it was worth it in the end because I got the images that I needed for my portfolio. Now, the next thing that I did was I asked my mother agent to set up meetings for me. So, like I said, my mother agent is based in New York, and she does book me for things in New York. That's her territory, that's her thing. I had previously been signed out here in LA. I'm currently here right now. I was signed out here before from like 2020 to 2022. And I decided that LA was a good market for me, so I wanted to get signed here again. So I asked her, around November, December, I said, hey, I'm going out to LA in January. I want you to set up some meetings for me so that I can, go in, talk to these agencies, and I can get signed in LA. So she did that for me. She set up about 15 meetings within my first week of being out here. Now, the meetings, I prepared for these meetings. I'll say I had maybe 1 to 2 meetings every day. So it was a really crazy week in hindsight, because I think on Monday I had a meeting and it went okay. And I was like, okay. And Tuesday about the same. And I think by the time Wednesday came, it was time for my meeting with Next. Now, I had done my research on all of the agencies that she sent me, that she said she was going to set me up for. Out of all the agencies, I really was interested in Next, in Wilhelmina, and with Pretty Management or Pretty Models. It's one of the two. But yeah, I was really interested in those 3. So what I did before I did any meetings was I prepared for this. An agency meeting is no different than a job interview, and you need to start treating it as such. So the way that I prepared, I went online and I looked for questions that they might ask. I looked on TikTok and I just searched up model agency meeting, because I wanted to see what it was going to be like. I had never had one face to face. When I originally got signed out here in LA, it was during 2020, during the pandemic. So we didn't even do a Zoom meeting. I got scouted on social media. They said they wanted me and sent the contract. That was it. We didn't have a meeting. We didn't talk about anything. And in hindsight, that was the wrong thing to do. We should have had a meeting. Now, I had a meeting with Yanni, right? But I already had somewhat of a relationship with her because I knew her prior to that. So, yeah. With preparing for these agency meetings, I looked on TikTok and I did my research. And I wrote down a list of potential questions that they would ask me, and I prepared them. I prepared my answers for these questions. I had also prepared myself a 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch of, a little bit about myself, where I'm from, what my interests are, how I got into modeling, and why I love what I do. And something like a fun fact about me that was not modeling related, something interesting about myself. And on top of that, the thing that impressed pretty much every agency that I visited, I also prepared about 5 to 10 questions to ask them, because it shows that I am really committed to my career, and I put the initiative in to think about these things. But they were legit questions. I asked things like, is there anything about my look you would want me to change? That's a big question. I have a friend that recently went in to Next for open call, and they wanted her to change her hair color. So that's something that I want to know, because maybe they don't like the black hair and they think that I would look better with blonde hair. And sometimes those changes make the difference between you barely booking anything and you just getting booked like crazy. But you need to know what they're thinking, just in case you're not comfortable with making those changes. So I asked them, is there anything about my look that you would want me to change? How many girls do you typically have out here on stay? What are your what are your main clients? What are some of the clients you work with? What kind of clients do you see me working with? So those are the things that I needed to know so that I could see where their head was, because in some of those meetings, I could clearly see from asking those questions and getting the answers, I was like, no, this agency isn't for me. And that's okay. That's what the meetings are for. Just because you want to get signed does not mean that you should sign with anyone. That's how a lot of times you see some models just going to a bunch of different agencies because they're trying to find a place that suits them and what their needs are. And I think the best way to be able to do that is to ask the right questions during your meeting. So, the next thing that I wanted to just touch on, so when I mentioned portfolio, all a portfolio is just a collection of images to show, what you look like, to show your body and to show your skills. And it shows a little bit of your personality. Now, My tips for getting signed. So the first thing that you want to do is assess what type of model are you. And you're going to base these things off of your height, number one, your size, and your location, and whether or not you're willing to travel. So with height, if you're 5'3", you're not necessarily going to be a runway model, or you're not going to be an editorial model. If you're 5'10" and you're a size 2, then yeah, you would probably be a pretty good editorial or runway model, or you could do both. If you're 5'3" and you're a size 6, then hey, you're a commercial model, and you might be a really good e-commerce model, meaning like the Fashion Nova, Sheins, and like the fast fashion brands, the girls that you see on the website, that's e-com. So if you have a athletic or a sporty build, then yeah, that's commercial modeling, and you would be good for Nike, Lululemon, Alo, Equinox. Those are some brands that you might work with. If you are curvy and you're plus size, then you should focus on agencies that are catered towards plus size women and guys. There are some agencies that cater towards both. So the next part is the location. So if you're already in a big city like LA, New York, or Miami, you're already at an advantage, because those are the biggest markets in the US. Now, if you're like me, I'm originally from South Carolina. There's no true modeling there. Not in the sense of what I wanted to do. Don't get me wrong, there are modeling agencies, and they have made a lot of stride in Columbia and in South Carolina as in general. But they just weren't up to the caliber and standard of work that I was looking for. Since coming out to LA, I've done Nike, I worked with Sierra, I've done Shein, I did Pretty Little Thing, but that was in New York. But my LA agency in 2020 booked me that job. I did Kylie Cosmetics. I've done quite a bit of stuff since I've come out here, and I wouldn't have gotten those opportunities if I didn't leave. So a really big part of my advice is that if you are in a small town, you can't do it there. You need to leave. You cannot be a model in Wisconsin. Not if you want to actually take it seriously and you want to hang with the big dogs. If you want to hang with the big dogs, you have to go where the big dogs play. And they don't play in small towns. They're in big cities, okay? What's the point of being a big fish in a small pond? I'm trying to be a big fish in the damn ocean, okay? And out here in LA, it's the ocean. Everybody's a big fish. Everybody's beautiful. Everybody has something going on. And it just makes me step my cookies up. Plus, there's more opportunities for me out here. My agency has a bunch of clients that are in alignment with me. So the next thing is to use Models Dot. When I tell you this is one of the best resources there is for models out there, you should be using this 10 toes. So when I was originally trying to get signed for the very first time, this is what I used. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to Models Dot, you're gonna look under the agency tab, and you're gonna filter through. You can filter it based off of location and other things, but you're gonna find that the agencies that best fit you. When you look through, pretty much every agency has a portal where you can submit to them directly online. When you do this, be sure to follow the instructions exactly. Not every agency is going to require the same thing. So don't think that you can take one set of digitals and use them for all of your submissions, because you're not going to be able to. Sometimes they're very clear. And then there are some where they don't even have a portal. They just say, hey, send your images to this email. Yeah. So so that would be the best bet if you're not able to travel. However, you should still go and follow these agencies on TikTok and Instagram. Some of them don't have a presence on TikTok, but I've seen some agencies that do, like Elite Models. I'm like, yes, I've seen their TikTok videos and seen some of their models, and they're really cute, trendy videos. You need to be following them because agencies will post when they're doing open calls. And that is the best chance that I personally think that you have to get seen. You know, again, my story is a little different. I got scouted the first time online, right? My face was already everywhere because I was going viral. Like, my modeling pictures were going viral. These were ones that I took on my own, right? They were going viral. All of my content and my videos on TikTok were going viral on Twitter. So it was just inevitable that a model scout was going to see me at some point. So that's how it happened for me. That's not necessarily everyone's story. And honestly, if I had been able to physically go to modeling agencies, I would have. However, we were in the middle of a pandemic and that was out of the question. It's just better when they can see you face to face and they can really get a feel for your personality. That is what is going to do it. You need to sell yourself, and the personality does it. Because let me tell you, modeling is 10% looks. It's 90% personality and how you work it. And when I left my agency meeting with Next, I think I was on the way home. My mother agent, Yanni, she called me. She's like, I'm like, hello? She's like, Next wants to sign you. Same day. They were like, yep, we want to sign her. Because my book was solid, but I sold myself by how I did that interview. I showed my personality. Because when you go in for castings, you have to do the same thing. An agency meeting is just basically like an audition. That's all it is. It's an audition. It's an interview. It's a job interview. And you're going to have to do this continuously. When I go in to cast for different brands, this is what I have to, that's the energy that I need to maintain. So I have to show them that, oh, this is how I'm going to present myself when you send me out on Go Season on castings. That personality, that's the edge, and that's that flair that could be the difference between you not hearing from them and you getting like, yes, we want to sign you. Now, when it comes to the interview, like I said, interview prep is everything. Go on TikTok, go on Google, use AI, use ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever it is that you're comfortable using, and come up with some questions or get ChatGPT to help you, with questions that they might ask you. Literally look on TikTok for questions that they are going to ask you and prepare your answers thoroughly. You also need to practice. I mean, when I practice for my interviews, I practice everything down to my body language. When I spoke to them, this is how I was speaking, like, ooh, yes. You know, my body language was very animated and expressive. And it was all there, and it was just, it was extra, and it was larger than life. I practiced because I didn't want to be there like, I'm pretty sure my first couple of interviews, I was like that. But I'm glad that Next wasn't my first one. It was in the middle of the week. So I had warmed up and I had practiced. I used those other agencies as practice. So I was already in my groove. You feel me? By the time that I got to them. And I would say, if you have someone to practice with, do it with another person so that they can give you feedback. And even better, record it so that you can look at yourself. You need to see what you look like when you're speaking, when you're answering these questions. How do you sound? How do you look? And that's the next thing. How do you look when you go into this interview? You're not going with a full face of makeup. You're going barefaced, your hair pulled back, or you can wear it down, just bring a hair tie. You're wearing an all black outfit. simple fitted top, some black jeans or black slacks, and black boots or black sneaker, and bring a pair of heels and a bathing suit, just in case they take your digitals, which they did that to me. They took my digitals, and the digitals that they took that day ended up being what they used on the website for like the first half of this year. So yeah, you also need to prepare the questions that you are going to ask them. Again, think about what is important to you. You need to ask them like, hey, I do live in the middle of nowhere. I live in Idaho. How often do you bring girls on stay? And that's another term that you should know. You should also be looking up terminology and modeling words and whatnot. You should be asking them all of those things. If you don't really have any experience with the contract, so you don't know how long the term would last, that's something that you might want to ask, right? I have a list of questions, and I can make a separate video on how to prepare for an agency meeting and the questions that you should ask. But I think the questions are relative to you as a model and where you are in your journey. Mind you, I've already been modeling. That wasn't my first agency, so I already knew some things. But if you're new to it, you are probably going to have way different questions than what I had. So we talked about hair, makeup, what you should wear. We talked about the questions, your elevator pitch. You need to have that prepared. Again, 1 to 2 minutes. Talk about a little bit about yourself, where you're from, why you love modeling, and something that you're interested in, or a hobby that you've taken up, a cool fact about you, some trick you can do, something that's interesting about yourself. Now, okay, so I think that's all that I have for this video, but like I said, I will be more than happy to make a follow-up video if you would. It's so much going on in here right now, and I'm overstimulated, but whatever. I would be more than happy to make a follow-up video. If you have any more questions, leave a heart below. If you want me to do the full video on the agency meeting prep and how to seal the deal and get signed. And leave a comment below if you have any other modeling questions that you want me to answer, and I will be sure to either answer it directly or make a detailed video about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.